A mysterious body, a strange metal.
They could not have manufactured this material in 1897 to anywhere near this purity.
A bizarre ailment.
And he blamed contamination of the crash. Something got into the water.
These are pieces of a 100-year-old puzzle, a puzzle that may come together in this Texas graveyard. Amazingly, many UFO investigators are convinced that one of these graves contains the unearthly remains of an extraterrestrial. But this grave has remained undisturbed for 100 years. We found out why, firsthand. After we arrived, dogs began to bark an alarm, and within minutes, calls were placed to the county's sheriff's office. You would never find the grave unless you knew where to look. For years, it was marked with an odd-shaped rock. It had a carving of a spaceship on it. Well, that grave marker has now been stolen, and there's nothing to indicate that anything at all was ever buried here. After they arrived on the scene, local sheriffs escorted us off the site. It seems they're old hands at this job, but they know that there may be some truth behind the local folklore.
There was an alien ship that crashed here, and they found this, the alien, and the citizens picked up this creature and tried to nurse the creature and hid the creature in a barn, one of the barns that was here. And when the alien died, well, they, buried the creature in this cemetery. Back in the 20s, some people heard the story and came out and was trying to dig up the cemetery, and they had, the local folks got their shotguns out and ferreted off the intruders.
That message is still clear today. No trespassing. But those restrictions haven't discouraged researchers from the Mutual UFO Network from piecing together the story. It began with a series of strange encounters in 1896 and 1897.
Well, the month of April 1897, people were reporting what we call mysterious airships, for the lack of a better name, all over the Midwest, from Michigan.
Would we call them UFOs now?
We would call them UFOs now, yes.
But this particular encounter was different from the others. One of these airships allegedly crashed into a large wooden windlass or windmill. That was the beginning.
Charlie Stevens saw this object coming in at 4 a.m. in the morning, and it came up and hit the windlass and destroyed it. And what Charlie Stevens was seeing from about 3 miles away down there. It flamed up, it exploded, and he could see the flames from that distance.
Today, the story still lives on with Bonnie Oates.
He got in 20 foot of this old well house out here, and he said, now right in here is where it happened. I said, well, that's where the well is. He said, there's a lot of twisted metal.
In a more sophisticated place or time, this bizarre incident might have attracted more attention. But this was an isolated farming community, and the commotion quickly died.
It would be the logical thing to do is to, well, let's clean up the mess, let's bury the thing and go on about our business. Not even realizing the value or the importance scientifically to the find that they had.
What did they find? Based on eyewitness accounts, investigator Hayden Hughes managed to create these composites of the ship's dead pilot. Most of the smashed ship was carted off as souvenirs, and at least one metal chunk was buried with the pilot. But a few pieces were tossed down a well near the crash. That might account for the grotesque ailment suffered by Bonnie Oates' husband, Brawley, who later died. And what did he blame that on?
Radiation that got into the well water where the crash occurred in 1897.
Bonnie, what did your husband believe?
Well, he thought there's something somewhere, he didn't know what.
Although radiation levels around the crash site are normal, metal fragments may still remain. What do you got there, Bonnie? What is that?
Oh, that's...
Bonnie saved some of the metal. Metal that she is convinced caused her husband's illness. Aerospace engineer John Schuessler recovered a sample back in 1973. He found the metal melted and re-solidified around the limestone at the crash site.
It fits the contention that it came from an explosion where it was molten and was blown out and landed on limestone rock and contoured to the rock and re-solidified, and that all fits with the story.
Other metallurgists concluded that in 1897, this substance simply did not exist on Earth.
first they said, oh, this looked like a slug or something. And after a week or so, I said, hey guys, where'd my metal? And they said, well, it's kind of intriguing. We want to run a few more runs.
The metal proved to be a kind of aluminum, and it was impossible to make aluminum this pure in 1897. It would still be difficult today. The real key to this mystery lies beneath this giant oak tree. Legend says that this is where the alien pilot is buried. Local police say that whatever is buried here is going to remain here, undisturbed. For years, UFO researchers have been trying to get permission to exhume this grave. They made a formal request in the 1970s. That request might have been granted, but then someone decided not to wait.
Now, in 1973, someone came in and stole a little triangular tombstone off of the grave. And the following weekend, someone came in with a 3-inch pipe, drove right down into the grave, and where it had been showing that metal was buried there, according to metal detectors, it was now gone. And so the local people call that grave robbing. Well, you could say that. Something was taken from that grave.
At that point, negotiations to exhume the body collapsed. Still today, the locals refuse to disturb their graveyard out of respect for the dead.
This is a rural county. People have a way of life that they want to protect their own. And before, because people have destroyed the cemetery and moved markers and things like that, they're quite protective of the cemetery.
To be so close to the evidence, to the physical proof that there are extraterrestrials that cannot be disputed, it is very frustrating.
For 100 years, the mystery has remained undisturbed. UFO researchers are furious, but they know better than to take the law into their own hands. But underneath the oak tree, the hidden truth may be waiting.